I will raise this child by myself. I tell Ben with strong determination. However, Ben just laughs it off. Go ahead, do as you like. Olivia is not an object. Yet, I could only feel disgust towards Ben, who treated her so lightly. Talking to Ben any further would just be a waste of time. Well, I have to go to my beloved Isabella. You two take care of each other. Even if you both collapse, I'm a stranger now. Don't you dare rely on me. Saying that, Ben left the house. Some days later. Is Olivia here? Ben comes back, looking desperate. He probably learned some secrets about Olivia. How dare you show your face now? I look at Ben with contempt. Shut up. You keeping quiet about it is cowardly too. Olivia, let's live with your real father. Weren't you bullied by your stepmother? Ben looks at Olivia and keeps talking to her. The next moment, Olivia looks down on him and says, Who are you? I am Nicole Thompson. This year I turned 45. I currently live with my husband, Ben, who is the same age, and our daughter Olivia. Ben was a classmate from middle school. Back then, Ben was mischievous and I was quiet. We hardly had any interactions. Ben often skipped classes, and when he was in class, he was always sleeping. He seemed quite the troublemaker. However, Ben had his good sides. He valued friendships. Ben got along with everyone, regardless of gender. It seemed like he cared a lot about his friends, and he was always willing to help a friend in need. I watched Ben from afar. We never became particularly close, and just like that, we graduated from middle school. Ben and I went to different high schools. We met again at a middle school reunion. Being in my 40s, I was curious about what kind of adults everyone had become. It might be a chance to reminisce about old times. Wanting to see my classmates and friends after so long, I decided to attend the reunion. That's where I ended up sitting next to Ben. Could it be Nicole? It's been so long. Ben talked to me in a friendly manner. I was plain looking back then, so I didn't stand out much. I was surprised that Ben remembered me. But, strangely, I didn't feel bad about it. You've changed, Ben. I couldn't recognize you. Ben used to dress like a delinquent in middle school. But now, Ben's hair was short, and his clothes were fresh. He barely resembled his old self. From there, Ben and I hit it off. And we exchanged contact information when the reunion was wrapping up. After that, we started seeing each other regularly. Eventually, we began dating and started thinking about marriage. It seemed Ben felt the same way, and one day he proposed. I want you to marry me. I couldn't think of marrying anyone but Ben, so I accepted his proposal. At that moment, seeing Ben so happy made me smile too. We decided to just register our marriage, considering our age. We decided not to have a wedding ceremony or a honeymoon. After registering our marriage, Ben informed me that he was actually divorced and had a daughter. I was surprised, but it was already after we had registered. It wasn't possible to undo the marriage now, and at our age. Having my own children would be difficult. I decided to look at it positively, thinking that I could experience parenting, which I had given up on. Fortunately, my new daughter, Olivia, turned out to be a very good girl. I believed that the three of us would get along well. However, that belief was quickly betrayed. After getting married, Ben's mischievousness from his middle school days returned. Perhaps he had just been hiding it while we were dating. Right after we got married, Ben and Olivia moved into the house I lived in. I had bought a detached house, worried about my old age. At the time, Ben and Olivia were living in an apartment. It was more cost-effective for them to move into my house to save on rent. So, I asked Ben and Olivia to cancel their apartment lease and move in with me. Fortunately, we had several spare rooms. Ben seemed happy about saving on rent and agreed to move in. For a while, everything was peaceful. Ben worked as a carpenter, so he often came home late. Since I could work from home and had a flexible schedule, I often took care of Olivia. I also took care of taking her to and from daycare. In the beginning, Ben was grateful for my help. I always feel bad for being so busy. To make it up to you, let's go out for a meal on Sunday. It's on me. Ben would say this every time he came home late from overtime. However, this consideration changed after living together for just 6 months. I'm going out drinking with colleagues tonight. Don't wait up for dinner. Ben would send such messages, and then he wouldn't come back until the morning. We were still newlyweds. I thought this was incredibly rude. So, I decided to confront Ben in the morning. However, as soon as he got home, he locked himself in his room, making it impossible to have a conversation. I have a hangover, so please leave me alone. I'm taking the day off from work. Whenever things went wrong, Ben always did this. He would complain about feeling unwell, making it difficult for me to push back. Okay. I had no choice but to agree. But my worries weren't just about Ben. I was also concerned about Olivia. Olivia had a weak constitution and frequently ran a fever. She coughed a lot and often seemed unwell. I frequently received calls from the daycare asking me to pick her up because she was sick. Having no experience with child rearing, I had nothing to compare this to. But I was worried that this was happening too often. Concerned, I decided to talk to Ben about Olivia's health before he went to work in the morning. It's about Olivia. She's had a fever 5 times this month already. Don't you think that's too much? It was clear that the number of times she was getting sick was unusually high. Then, Ben replied with a frown. I don't know what you want me to do about it. Getting sick is somewhat inevitable with kids in daycare, isn't it? But still. I was perplexed. Then, Ben seemed to have an idea. Maybe Olivia is just not used to the new environment. Nicole, you're a mother now. Try giving her more nutritious food and take better care of her. What? I was stunned by Ben's suggestion. It was as if he was saying I wasn't feeding Olivia properly. Before I could respond, Ben dismissively said, Anyway, I'm busy. You'll have to handle it, Nicole. Then, Ben left for work. But you're her biological father. Doesn't he care about Olivia? The thought crossed my mind for a moment, but my concern for Olivia was paramount. I bought a cookbook and started making meals with higher nutritional value. However, despite my efforts, something unexpected happened one evening. I was preparing dinner in the kitchen when I noticed I couldn't hear Olivia, who should have been in the living room. Normally, she would be watching TV and singing happily. Olivia? What's wrong? I went to check on her in the living room and froze. Olivia had collapsed, her face contorted in pain. Olivia. Are you okay? I rushed to her side, but she didn't respond. I immediately called an ambulance. At the hospital, I was faced with an unexpected reality. Pediatric cancer? Yes. We'll need to discuss the treatment plan going forward. The doctor explained the situation in a calm manner, which helped me stay composed. We decided to perform more detailed examinations the next day to determine the treatment plan. It was Sunday, and the specialist wasn't available. Mommy. Can we go home today? Olivia was anxious after waking up in the hospital. Yes, of course, honey. We'll go home together. I answered Olivia with a smile. Even though it was Sunday, Ben wasn't at home. Because today, like many others, Ben is out drinking with friends. He was happily looking up bars on his smartphone yesterday. Ben left the house before noon, and it's uncertain if he will return today. The only option I have is to talk to Ben properly. Olivia's illness is serious, and it's necessary for Ben to understand that. However, Ben has recently been neglecting to take care of Olivia. Honestly, I'm not even sure if he has any affection for her. So, it's uncertain how Ben will react. I'm so anxious about his reactions. I sighed quietly to myself. But that day, Ben did not return home. Nor did he come back the following morning. Olivia, let's go. With no other choice. I took Olivia with me to the hospital where she had been taken by ambulance the day before. We underwent various tests, including blood tests, first thing in the morning. We were told the results would come later, so Olivia and I returned home, somewhat tired. To my surprise, Ben was at home, drunk. Hey, welcome back. He was in a good mood, drinking beer from a can. I felt angry at his attitude. It's insensitive, considering Olivia is going through such a difficult time. I wished he would show more awareness as a father. Why didn't you come home yesterday? And what about work today? My voice naturally lowered. But Ben just laughed happily. Last night was so fun. I just got back a bit ago and decided to take the day off, he said, taking another swig of his beer. Glancing at Olivia, I saw her looking sad. Any child would feel this way, knowing their own illness and seeing their father in such a state. Clenching my fist, I yelled at Ben. Enough. Do you even realize Olivia has pediatric cancer? We are facing a tough situation. Do you even have any sense of responsibility as a father? I glared at Ben as I said this. Ben looked dumbfounded upon hearing my words. Is it true that Olivia has pediatric cancer? Then he turned to Olivia, who nodded silently, her face pale. No way. This is such a hassle. I can't afford hospital bills or anything like that. He sighed heavily. I was appalled. To react this way and show such an attitude upon learning his own daughter is sick. This is the epitome of a father's failure. Disgusted and at a loss for words, Ben then made a shocking declaration. I hate dealing with troublesome stuff. Maybe it's time to call it quits. What do you mean? What does he mean by, it's time? A question mark pops up in my head. Then, the next moment, Ben made an outrageous statement. I actually have someone else I like. So, I'm thinking this might be a good opportunity to marry her instead. Olivia is in the way, so Nicole, you take her and raise her. You've got some maternal feelings, right? What? Olivia is sick. And you're not even going to try to support her as her father? My anger towards Ben's words increased. Olivia whispered, Dad's the worst. Clearly upset. It's unimaginable that these words are about his own daughter. However, Ben didn't seem to care about our reactions. Let's get divorced. I even have the divorce papers ready. He pulled out a crumpled divorce paper from his bag. Likely having planned to remarry someone else all along. Otherwise, why would he have a divorce paper ready? Ben said with a smirk, of course, you'll get Olivia's custody. I can't deal with a sick child. He was truly finished as a father. Olivia looked anxious at his words. Mommy. She clung to me, looking terrified. Seeing Olivia like this, I made up my mind. I couldn't leave her with such a despicable person as Ben. Whether she was my biological child or not. I love Olivia. So, I resolved. I will raise her by myself. I told Ben with determination. However, Ben just laughed it off. Ben said, go ahead, do as you like. Olivia is not an object. Yet, I could only feel disgust towards Ben who treated her so lightly. Talking to Ben any further would just be a waste of time. Well, I have to go to my beloved Isabella. You two take care of each other. Even if you both collapse, I'm a stranger now. Don't you dare rely on me. Ben said this, abandoned Olivia, and left the house. This is so frustrating. I shed a tear. Ben showed no awareness as a father until the very end. With such a father, Olivia would never be happy. I looked at Olivia. She smiled sadly. I'll be okay. Don't worry about me, Mommy. I'm really sorry for causing so much trouble. She whispered so, with a hint of hesitation. You're not a bother at all. Forcing a child as young as 6 to say such things, Ben truly is the lowest of the low. My heart tightened with pain. So, I hugged Olivia and quietly told her. It's okay. I'll make sure your father regrets abandoning such a cute child like you. It's unforgivable. Olivia was trembling slightly. Mommy, thank you. Tears overflowed from her eyes. Days later, Olivia and I were happily living together. Fortunately, she didn't need to be hospitalized and outpatient visits were sufficient. I couldn't forgive Ben, but the time spent with Olivia was healing. We made the most of it, baking sweets together and cherishing our time as a duo. During such moments. Is Olivia here? Ben comes back, looking desperate. He probably learned some secrets about Olivia. How dare you show your face now? I look at Ben with contempt. Shut up. You keeping quiet about it is cowardly too. Olivia, let's live with your real father. Weren't you bullied by your stepmother? Ben kept talking to Olivia, looking concerned, but that was likely just an act of his. After such horrible behavior, it's hard to believe he had a change of heart. Then, Olivia looked down on him and said, Who are you? Huh? Olivia, what are you talking about? I'm your only father, aren't I? Did Nicole say something to you? Ben seemed incredulous. Then Olivia countered. My family is only Mommy. I don't have a dad. She glared at Ben. Ben, thoroughly rejected by Olivia, looked at me desperately. Nicole, we haven't submitted the divorce papers yet, right? We're still married, and Olivia is my child. Right? There was a hint of hope in Ben's eyes. I had to confront him with reality. I submitted the divorce papers long ago. What are you even talking about now? Days had passed since Ben left the house. Ben's face fell with despair. You act too fast. He was stunned. However, Ben then said, I found out about Olivia's insurance. You're just noticing now. I whispered quietly. Olivia's secret. It was that she was covered by a large insurance policy. Actually, I work in sales at a life insurance company. So, I fully understand the importance of life insurance more than anyone. I have a large insurance policy on myself, covering critical illness, disability, care needs, and more. Of course, I'm also enrolled in pension and lump sum payment plans. And that applies to Olivia as well. Right after marrying Ben and becoming a family with Olivia, I enrolled her in several insurance policies. I only told Ben that I was getting insurance for Olivia. You're covering the insurance premiums, right? Then do whatever you like. Ben said so. He seemed uninterested at the time and never asked anything about it afterward. Probably he had forgotten all about it until now. But I used all my knowledge to enroll Olivia in the best possible insurance. Why he is suddenly so interested now is beyond me. I found that curious. So, I asked Ben, why are you suddenly interested in Olivia's insurance? You seemed uninterested when we talked about it. I thought you had forgotten. Then Ben revealed something shocking. I was curious if there was a letter for me. I went to the house during the day and ended up stealing all the letters from the postbox. From what I heard, it seemed Ben had come to the house on his own and stolen letters from the mailbox. I found a letter from the life insurance company and couldn't help but open it. It was a confirmation of Olivia's insurance coverage. "You really put a lot of insurance on Olivia," Ben said, smirking. I couldn't believe he would open my mail without permission. I was too dumbfounded to respond. Then, grinning, Ben asked, "How much did you get from the insurance because Olivia got cancer? You enrolled in medical insurance, right?" It must have been written in the letter. Ben was aggressively curious. His greed for money was disappointing. Moreover, despite Olivia's illness, he hadn't shown any concern for her. I felt no obligation to inform such a person kindly. So, I decided to play dumb with Ben. Who knows? What are you going to do with that information now? We're already divorced. You won't get a penny of the insurance money, you know? Ben looked frustrated. That's because you kept quiet. Why he thought he was entitled to the insurance money was beyond me. I decided to confront him with reality. First off, I'm the policyholder for Olivia's insurance. I'm the one paying the premiums. What makes you think you have any rights when you've done nothing, Ben? Then, Ben said with a guilty look, "I'll remarry you. If we're married, the insurance money becomes joint property, right?" It seems Ben finally realized he was at a disadvantage. That makes sense, given that Ben hasn't paid a single penny towards Olivia's insurance. Even selfish Ben must have realized he couldn't claim any rights. I firmly stated, "No, thank you." "Weren't you going to remarry Isabella?" "I have no intention of remarrying you. Who would remarry such a person?" I rejected him completely. Then, Ben pleaded with me. The remarriage fell through. "The marriage with Isabella is off," Ben said, collapsing in defeat. "What? You left so confidently before. What happened?" I couldn't help but ask Ben. Olivia looked surprised too. After all, Ben had left saying he was going to remarry Isabella. What could have changed that suddenly? Olivia looked puzzled. Then, Ben started to explain sheepishly. "Actually, I moved in with Isabella, but after lazing around together, I lost my job, and Isabella dumped me." "I see." I could only be appalled at Ben. Turns out, Isabella wanted to be a housewife. She said, "I don't need a man without money," and kicked me out. Ben scratched his cheek, embarrassed. Even so, I had no intention of reconciling with Ben. Just because you were dumped by your affair doesn't mean you can come back. I'm not remarrying you. And you have no rights to Olivia's insurance. Don't say that. Please, I'm begging you. Ben desperately begged me. But my stance remained unchanged. I've decided to live with Olivia. You should start a new life too. I replied coldly. Then, Ben grumbled. I was planning to go to Isabella with Olivia's insurance money. If I had the money, maybe we could get back together. Just give me the money already. So that's your true intention. I was taken aback by Ben's true colors. His spirit of only targeting the insurance money he hadn't paid for was astonishing. I felt even more outraged. All you talk about is money. What were you planning to do with Olivia if you got her back? Were you planning to take care of her properly? If Ben had planned to dedicate himself to Olivia's care, maybe there could have been some redemption for him as a father. I waited for Ben's answer. But Ben's response was utterly selfish. What? Of course, I wouldn't bother with that. Once I got the insurance money, I'd just put her in a facility. If it's attached to a hospital, they'd probably take her in, right? He said this as if it was the most natural thing. You're the worst. I was speechless. Ben showed no sign of fatherly concern. He probably isn't worried about Olivia. He was only interested in money. You're just after the money, aren't you? And you call yourself a father? I'm appalled. Besides, the beneficiary of the insurance is designated. Even if you got custody, it would mean nothing. What do you mean? I explained with a sigh. Ben thought that having custody meant he could receive the insurance money. However, beneficiaries are usually designated when the policy is signed. So, Ben had no right to receive the insurance money. Ben was in despair. What am I supposed to do now? No job, no woman, no place to live. Ben looked hopeless. That's not my problem. Find a job somewhere else. It's all the result of your own actions. This was entirely Ben's fault. If he had been serious about his work, he wouldn't have been fired. It was a clear case of reaping what he sowed. However, Ben had no intention of working. Cornered, Ben suddenly had an idea and looked at me. Right. I can be a security guard at your house. It's careless for women to live alone, right? Plus, it's safer to live with someone you know, isn't it? Ben said this, expecting me to agree. Seeing my silence, he took it as affirmation. In exchange for my security services, you can give me some of the insurance money, right? Ben winked. I was almost impressed by his audacity. Olivia was looking at Ben in disbelief. A father who makes his daughter look at him that way must be unique to Ben. It seemed I needed to make things clear to him. I smiled warmly, and Ben relaxed into a smile too. Then, I shouted. Absolutely not. I will take care of Olivia myself. I have no intention of reconciling with you. Never show up in front of me again. No way. Ben made a shocked face. You were the one who said, even if we collapse, I'm a stranger now. Don't you dare rely on me. I'm just returning those words back to you. Those words were unforgettable to me. It seemed Ben had given up trying to persuade me after my declaration. Then, he turned to Olivia and spoke to her in a coaxing tone. Olivia, you want to live with your real dad, right? You don't want this fake mom who's a stranger, do you? Ben. At this point, Ben tried to cling to Olivia, probably thinking that if he could persuade Olivia, I would follow. I was just appalled by how Ben always relied on others. I glanced at Olivia. She looked angrier than I had ever seen her before. Being selfishly dragged around by Ben had clearly angered Olivia. Taking a deep breath, Olivia shouted, "You're not my dad. I hate you. I only have mommy. Don't ever show up again." Olivia said this and hugged me. Olivia. I was deeply moved by Olivia's words. Then, looking frustrated, Ben said, "Fine. Don't come crying to me later." He said this and was about to leave, but I called out to him. Ben. Ben turned back and asked, "What? Changed your mind about getting back together?" He seemed to assume I would agree, looking utterly confident. However, I was about to drop him into despair. Smiling sweetly, I told Ben, "We may have divorced, but I'll be suing for compensation for your affair. Of course, that includes Isabella too. I'll make sure you regret neglecting Olivia." Ben's face turned pale. "I don't have money. I don't even have a place to live anymore, and I've quit my job," he mumbled to himself. I looked at Ben with a smirk. "Such a pity, huh? Thought you were going to get a large insurance payout. But now you have to pay out instead. What a pitiful man. Don't mess with me." Ben shouted in frustration. He sounded like a sore loser. If you show up in front of us again, I'll call the police. Be prepared. I smiled sweetly at Ben, and perhaps intimidated by my smile. He just replied with a yes, and hastily retreated. After that incident, Ben disappeared. I hired a lawyer to sue Ben and Isabella for compensation. Isabella initially resisted paying the compensation, but after being persuaded by the lawyer, she eventually agreed to pay the standard rate. If you're not satisfied, we can take this to court. But it might get out to your company, you know. I think that played a significant role in her decision. I heard that Isabella broke up with Ben and remained single. Isabella, who planned to live off a man by taking Ben away. But in the end, she was left with only the compensation payment after breaking up with Ben. It must have been a regrettable outcome for Isabella as well. And Ben ended up in a more tragic situation. He lost his job and a place to live, resulting in a complete loss of income. Ben must have felt cornered mentally. He began appearing in front of me and Olivia frequently. He looked disheveled and even smelled a bit. I feared he might do something drastic. It wouldn't be good for Olivia's emotional well-being. Therefore, I consulted the police and obtained a restraining order against him. When Ben ambushed us once, the police happened to pass by and gave him a stern warning. "I'm so sorry." He fled the scene as if escaping. After that, we didn't see Ben anymore. He must be living in fear of the police now. Interestingly, the compensation was paid up front by Ben's parents. They apologized to us repeatedly. Since I, who have no blood relation to Olivia, ended up raising her, they probably felt extra guilty. They also provided child support in addition. Moreover, Ben's parents intend to sever their parental ties with him in exchange for covering these expenses. Particularly, Ben's father was very angry, declaring, "Ben will never cross our threshold again. Even if there's an inheritance, he'll never see a dime of it." Ben's mother, tearfully denouncing him. "He's truly disgraceful. Ben is no longer my son." Saying so, she demonstrated a firm stance of refusal. With that attitude, it's unlikely Ben could rely on his parents anymore. I also informed our middle school classmates about Ben's situation. It was to ensure Ben lost all possible support. Ben always valued his friendships, especially those from middle school. Even while we were dating, he often said, "My friends from middle school are very important to me. It's a lifelong friendship." He kept in touch with them regularly. Being cut off by friends would be the most painful for him. Since most classmates are reasonable people, they are unlikely to support Ben. I truly think it serves him right. Now, Ben has no one left to rely on. With no job or support, Ben's future looks bleak. Since then, I've been taking Olivia to the hospital regularly for her treatment. Fortunately, her pediatric cancer was detected early, and there's a high chance of a complete recovery. Sorry, Mommy. Although Olivia always seems apologetic, I love her, so it's not a problem for me. I always respond, "It's okay. Let's work hard together and get you better soon." Her treatment has just begun. There will be various challenges ahead. But as long as I'm with Olivia, I'm confident we can overcome them. To become a true mother to Olivia, I will keep striving today.